Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Good day everyone. My name is Anthony Ivan Timog from Criminology 22. Today, I'm going to discuss the following. Forensic serology. Forensic serology is a scientific analysis of blood and other bodily fluids during the conduct of criminal investigation. In 1901, Karl Landsteiner announced one of the most significant discoveries of the 20th century, the typing of blood. Landsteiner was the first to recognize that all human blood was not the same. Then Landsteiner introduced the ABO system. ABO system. ABO classification system discovered why so many patients died after the transfusion for no apparent reason. They discovered the Rh factor in the blood. In the ABO system, there are two types of antigens, A and B. Type A blood cells have antigen A. Type B blood cells have B antigens. Type AB blood cells have both A and B antigens, and type O blood cells have neither antigens. Different methods on how to identify blood. Number 1 is phenolphthalein. Phenolphthalein produces a bright pink color when used in testing suspected blood. The next is tetramethylbenzidine. Is positive result when the color changes from the yellow to green or green to blue. The third is luminol. Involves spraying a mixture of luminol over an area thought to contain traces of blood. And then the last one is fluorescein. It requires alternate light source and will not react if the area has been previously treated for bleach. Alam naman natin na halos lahat ng krimen ay may natatagpo ang dugo, kaya ang pamamaraan na ito ay malaki ang naitutulong upang mahuli ang suspect. Isa sa pangunahing ginagawa ng mga investigador ay kailangan nilang alamin kung dugo ba talaga ang kanila natagpuan sa crime scene. Kaya haaluan nila ito ng chemical, at kapag ito ay nag-react base sa nilagay na chemical, ay maaari na itong ipasuri kung galing ba ito sa suspect o sa biktima, na magre-resulta sa mabilis na pag-usad ng investigasyon. Forensic anthropology is the application of the anatomical science of anthropology and its various subfields including forensic archaeology and forensic taphonomy in a legal setting. A forensic anthropologist can assist in the identification of deceased individuals whose remains are decomposed, burned, mutilated, or otherwise unrecognizable. History. The field of anthropology began in the United States and struggled to obtain recognition as a legitimate science during the early years of the 20th century. Ernest Hutton pioneered the field of physical anthropology and became the first physical anthropologist to hold a full-time teaching position in the United States. He was an organizing committee member of the American Association of Physical Anthropologists, along with its founder Alice Hrdlicka. Hutton's students created some of the first doctoral programs in physical anthropology during the early 20th century. In addition to physical anthropology, Hutton was a proponent of criminal anthropology. Then the third one is the determination of age. Determination of an individual's age by anthropologists depends on whether or not the individual was an adult or a child. The determination of the age of children under the age of 21 is usually performed by examining the teeth. When teeth are not available, children can be aged based on which growth plates are sealed. The tibia plate seals around age 16 or 17 in girls and around 18 or 19 in boys. And then the last is the determination of ancestry. The determination of an individual's ancestry is typically grouped into three historical groups: Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid. However, the use of this classification is becoming much harder as the rate of inter-ancestral marriage increase and markers become less defined. By measuring distances between landmarks on the skull as well as the size and shape of the specific bones, anthropologists can use a series of equations to estimate ancestry. Forensic anthropology methods. One of the main tools of forensic anthropologists used in the identification of remains is their knowledge of osteology and the differences that occur within the human skeleton. During an investigation, anthropologists are often tasked with helping to determine an individual's sex, stature, age, ancestry. To do this, anthropologists must be aware of how the human skeleton can differ between individuals. The first is determination of sex. Depending on which bones are present, sex can be determined by looking for distinctive sexual dimorphism. When available, the pelvis is extremely useful in the determination of sex, and when properly examined, can achieve sex determination with a great level of accuracy. The examination of the pubic arch and the location of the sacrum can help determine sex. Then the next is determination of stature. Stature is given as a range of possible values in centimeters and typically computed by measuring the bones of the leg. The three bones that are used are the femur, the tibia, and the fibula. In addition to the leg bones, the bones of the arm, the humerus, the ulna, and the radius can be used. Maaari mong matukoy ang pagkakakilanlan ng labi ng isang tao sa pamamagitan nito. Nakabase sila sa buto upang malaman ang kasarian at edad ng isang labi. Kadalasan, ginagamit ito sa mga hindi matukoy na labi. Forensic odontology. Forensic odontology is a proper collection, interpretation, evaluation, as well as presentation in court of dental evidence during the conduct of criminal and civil proceedings. History. The first use of dental identification was begun in 66 AD with a Griffin and Lolia Pauline case. It will documented evidence to the use of teeth. The first identification was started in India wherein Jai Chand, a great Indian monarchy, was destroyed by Muhammad armies, and Jai Chandraha of Kanauji was murdered, and he was identified by his false teeth. It's also identification of race, age, and gender to identify the people by examining the dentition and assessing radiographs by applying different methodologies and literature. Identification unknown remains. Dental identification plays an important role when identification of remain of deceased person is skeletonized, decomposed, burned, or dismembered and is invalid by visual or fingerprinting methods. The identification of remains by dental evidence is possible because the hard tissues are preserved after death and can even withstand a temperature of 1600 degrees Celsius when heated without appreciable loss of microstructure, and the status of a person's teeth change throughout the life, and the combination of decay, missing, filling can be obtained from any fixed time. What is teeth? Teeth would act as major source of DNA because its ability withstand to undergo change. Some authors suggest that teeth are better sources of DNA than skeletal bones. DNA is found in vascular pulp, odontoballistic process, accessories canals, and cellular cementum. Ang pamamaraan na ito ay pwedeng malaman ang pagkakakilanlan ng isang tao sa pamamagitan lamang ng kanyang ngipin. Binabase nila ito sa pattern ng ngipin ng isang tao. Pwede mo rin itong gamitin sa paghuli ng kriminal kapag ito ay nag-iwan ng bite marks. Pero para sa akin, itong hindi reliable, lalo na dito sa Pilipinas dahil kukunti lang ang bilang ng mga tao dito na may dental records. Kaya mahirap din gawin ito. Portrait parley. Portrait parley is defined as a rigorous system for verbal description of physical characteristic of the subject. It is based on the Bertillon method of criminal identification by measurements of the human body and is still in practice today to some extent, like mugshot. History. In 1882, Alphonse Bertillon, also called father of scientific detection, said that anthropology could be invoked to aid in the site of recognition and identification of criminals. Employing these methods of scientific description, he worked out a system of identification utilizing 11 skeletal measurements, which are practically unchanged after maturity and are not affected by increase or loss of weight. There are some examples in this chart. Sa pamamaraang ito ay kailangan mayroong isang witness o kakilala man lang ng suspect upang magbigay ng pisikal na katangian niya, at ito ay unti-unting bubuuin sa pamamagitan ng pagguhit upang mabuo ang itsura o mukha ng suspect. Anthropometry. Anthropometry is a measurement of the human individual, an early tool of physical anthropology. It has been used for identification for the purpose of understanding human physical variation. In paleoanthropology and in various attempts to correlate physical with racial and psychological traits, anthropometry involves the systematic measurement of the physical properties of the human body, primarily dimensional descriptors of body size and shape. History. The history of anthropometry includes the spans various concepts, both scientific and pseudoscientific, such as craniometry, paleoanthropology, biological anthropology, phrenology, physiognomy, forensics, criminology, phylogeography, human origins, and craniofacial description, as well as correlations between various anthropometric and personal identity, mental typology, personality, cranial bulk, and brain size, and other factors. Individual variation. Oxologic. Oxologic is a broad term covering the study of all aspects of human physical growth. Height. Human height varies greatly between individuals and across population for a variety of complex biological, genetic, and environmental factors, among others, due to methodological and practical problems. Its measurement is also subject to considerable error is statistically sampling. Ito ay pagkuha sa pisikal na katangian ng nahuling suspect at ito ay ilalagay sa records ng mga pulis para madaling matukoy kapag ito ay gumawa pa ulit ng krimen. DNA fingerprinting. DNA fingerprinting is a way to identify a certain individual rather than simply identify the species or particular trait. A technique used by scientists to distinguish between individuals of the same species using only samples of DNA. History. DNA fingerprinting was first reported by the English geneticist Alec Jeffreys. A DNA sample can be obtained from blood, hair, saliva, body tissue, cells. What is DNA? DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. DNA is the genetic material found within the cell nuclei of living things. With the exception of identical twins, the complete DNA of each individual is unique. I got some example of DNA fingerprinting. Ang pamamaraan namang ito ay ginagamit upang malaman ang pagkakatulad ng dalawang magkaibang tao. Maaari kang kumuha ng sample sa dalawang magkaibang tao at ito ay suriin upang malaman ang pagkakatulad sa pamamagitan ng siyensya. I hope you learn and enjoy in my video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.